Hey, what's up everybody? This is Flash 001 USA, and today's Friday. It's July 12th, year 2019. It's right around 6 p.m. in the afternoon. And now you're probably wondering, what are you looking at? Okay, yeah, you know what you're looking at. Let me explain this. Alright, recently I sold my Ford van, and I turned around and purchased this in its place. And this isn't the first school bus that I've owned. Years ago, I owned a full-size 72-passenger Dodge bus, and I used it for a lot of stuff. Mainly, I used it for band stuff, because you could haul a lot of equipment in a full-size bus. Now this is a mini bus or a half bus, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction. I'm going to be converting it over into something nice on the inside. I'm going to make it into an RV camper slash something that I can still haul my trailer behind and do stuff with the band with. And this thing runs really good. We'll walk around and get a look at it. Now this is a diesel, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. Now I'm going to tell you something. Anybody that's thinking about purchasing a bus, you can find them real cheap, but you got to be careful. Now when I got this, the people that I got it, they had all of the service information on this bus. Everything, from the day they purchased it until the day they sold it to me. So I know what was done to this bus, and I had a good idea what its worth was. And I got a really good deal on it, believe me. Okay, now, as mentioned, this thing is a diesel. It's an E450. It's a Super Duty 6.0 Power Stroke Ford van. Now, before some of you all out there stick your finger down your throat because it's 6.0 Power Stroke, something you need to be aware of. The earlier versions of this vehicle when it came out, or this engine, when they started adding all the emission stuff on it, you know, people, you know, they jokingly but seriously referred to them as kicking dime palms, and they were right. As Ford progressed with this, they got a lot of the bugs worked out of it, or at least most of them. So this was one of the very last ones as far as what they were selling, I guess, for buses and vans and trucks. This is 2008, so they had worked a lot of the bugs out of it. Regardless, the school that had this, they didn't take any chances. They kept really good maintenance on it. And that was backed up from my mechanic going through this thing. He went through it front and back and gave it an extremely clean bill of health. Okay, now the school, after 50,000 miles, they weren't going to chance these things going out, their buses. Because this came from up north, and I guess they wanted to make sure that they didn't have a bus breaking down with students in it in a freezing cold situation. So they bulletproofed the engine. Yep, that's right, they bulletproofed it. They bulletproofed it at 50,000 miles, and that was the emissions, the heads, the whole 9 yards, and this thing purrs. So what I wound up with, by the time I sold my van and put that money towards this, I wound up with a much bigger vehicle, a much heftier vehicle, for around $1,750. So I got a good deal on this, and everything works on it. The steering is good and tight on it. They even had new tires on this thing when I got it, so that was pretty amazing by itself. You know, normally if you get a vehicle that's got new tires on it, anybody's experienced, you start thinking front end issues. So the first thing I did was I took it to my mechanic. They went to this thing with a fine-tooth comb and gave it an extremely clean bill of health. So that was the most important thing for me right there, was not to be putting a lot of money into the front end on this or anything like that. But they came back with it and said, hey man, you got a really good deal on this thing. And I've driven it quite a bit. You know, I've taken it out and ran this thing pretty hard. I've had the rear end oil changed on it. I've done everything that I could do myself. And I'm going to be taking it either to a good transmission place or a dealership. And I'm going to go ahead and have the transmission flushed, just a general maintenance on it so I don't have any issues. So right now I'm in a parking lot someplace, so I'm going to go ahead and shut this camera down here before somebody wonders what I'm doing out here. But this was a place that I could walk around it and let everybody get a look at it. But I will do another video on the inside of it and let you guys see, you know, just the inside of it and everything. I've still got to put the floor into place. I've already got all the seats off of it and all the school bus logos. You have to do that anyhow. That's just something not only the insurance company requires and demands, but the DMV, because they're not going to let you ride around with your own school bus with school bus written on it for obvious reasons. But yeah, there it is. Purrs like a kitten, and this is going to be a very fun project. So stand by, and I'll continue adding on to this video. Then one day in the very near future, this will be up on YouTube. So on that note, Flash 001 USA, we're temporarily signing out. Okay, we'll let everybody take a look at the project and see what we've done so far. Yeah, I've got all of the passenger seats removed from the bus, along with the school logos that were on the outside of it. I had to do that not only for insurance reasoning, but for the requirements for the DMV before they'd even let me get a tag and put on this thing. And speaking of removing the seats, man, that was a job. Now, as I had mentioned, years ago I had a Dodge school bus, and seat removal from that was pretty easy. Basically, they had the seats mounted in with heavy-duty bolts that were self-tapping, so all you had to do was just get on the top side of it with some tools and loosen everything up and remove it. This, on the other hand, you can see these things here. That's where I've cut the seats out, and these things use nuts and bolts. It was just too much work to crawl up under here with WD-40 and try to spray all the stuff and get to the tight area, so a lot of people do what I did. They cut it out, which is not going to make a difference for this project because, as you can see, I've started the wood frame in here. That's going to be supporting the floor along with a place to put the insulation. It's well above all this stuff here, so it won't be seen anyhow when it's all done. Anyhow, I think when I finish laying this out, I'll bring the camera out here. We'll just take a look at it. This is more about just showing the progress and less about showing how I'm doing it. But yeah, it's a job, and it's a good project for the summer, no doubt. So take a standby, and I'll pull the camera back out once I finish all this. Alright, we've got our wooden strips secured to the floor, and the next step will be to put down the insulation. Now you probably notice that at the back of the bus where I'm at right now, from the wheel wells going on back, everything's running horizontal, and then from that point forward everything is running vertical. It really didn't matter which way these boards were ran, or at least it wouldn't have. I started at the back of the bus, and as I started moving forward, I came across an issue that I wasn't thinking about or I didn't contemplate, and that is these brackets here that secured the seats. Because I couldn't unbolt these easily, when I got up to them, I realized, I'm going to have some offsets here, and you can see where I actually had to cut one of the brackets out so that I could keep even spacing on the wood where I needed it. And I thought, you know what, that's too much like work. So what I did was I just switched up and ran this way. Either way, and/or tomato, tomato, potato, potato, as long as I've got the foundation here to lay the actual wooden floor down, that's all that matters. But there you go. And we'll come back once I get everything insulated. And speaking of, I'm just curious how much quieter it's going to make it in this bus once I get an actual floor in here with insulation. It's not too bad right now. You would think it would be noisy, but this bus is actually pretty quiet inside. Maybe because it's a half bus, I don't know. All right, I'll bring you guys back in once we get the insulation put down. Okay, we got the insulation laid down, and the next step will be to put the actual wooden floor into place. So far the jobs came off really good, and when I put the wooden pieces down here, I was really careful to make sure that everything was as square and as true as it needed to be. That way I wouldn't be dealing with hassle factors when I come in here to lay the floor down. Something else I want to mention. Earlier I said that it was going to be too much work to try to unbolt these support brackets for the seats, so I wound up cutting the seats out from the top. My workaround for high spots was just to cut around the insulation where these things are. I don't think that's going to cause too much of a heat or cold issue, losing that much of the insulation down here. I think if anything, this is going to basically attribute to a much quieter ride once everything's in place. And speaking of the floor, something I do want to mention. Now this is what I used on the floor right here. It's 3/4 inch thick by 1.5 inches wide. The reason being, you don't have a lot of real estate as far as height goes in most buses, especially a school bus. And it's not that I'm a tall person, but for somebody that is tall, if you get this floor raised up too high, then you start running out of ceiling room, no pun intended, especially if you're going to add something to the ceiling. So you start losing height. So basically I wanted to keep this floor, just basically keep it as short as possible as far as the height of it was concerned, and that's why I did that. And it worked out because the insulation, it's exactly 3/4 of an inch thick. So basically everything came off absolutely level. And once the floor is put into place, it's going to be good and tight. Okay, I'll bring everybody back once I get the wood laid down. So take a standby. Okay, we got the floor put down, and the next step will be to get in here and prep it up. This way I can get the tile laid down. The job came off without any issues. I didn't have any odd cuts or anything that gave me any problems getting everything in here. And I took it for a test drive once I got everything mounted into place, and it made a difference on the noise inside of here. So I was pretty amazed by that, especially being basically a hollow tube or a hollow room riding down the road. I can imagine how much quieter it's going to be, especially once I get in here and start doing construction and get everything put into place. But yeah, there it is. And as I mentioned, the next thing I got to do is get in here and prep this floor up and go pick me out some tile and get it put into place. So we'll see you guys on the next clip, and hopefully by then I will have everything on the floor finalized. Okay, we picked out the tile for the floor, and we're going to be using self-sticking tile along with the combination of glue on the floor. Now, when I went and got the stuff, I happened to get lucky and talked to somebody who was knowledgeable. They were explaining whenever you're using chipboard for the floor, that you really need to seal it with latex paint. It can be a cheap paint, it really doesn't matter. There's something about the chemicals in the chipboard that even if you put glue on the floor, over time it releases that chemical and will cause the glue to come loose. And the fix for that is just to go inside and seal the floor with latex paint, which is what I've done here. So the tile that I got, I'm just going to throw it down on the floor here. This is what we're going to put down right here. We're just keeping it really simple. So we're going to put the tile down in here, and once that's done, we can get started on the walls along with the partitions, and this job should start to move pretty quickly. So on that note, we're going to take a standby. We'll bring you back in on the next video. Okay, the floor's completed, and we'll take a look around and I'll explain what I did in here. There may be somebody out there that would be interested in how I did this, and it may help somebody. So first thing we'll do is we'll just take a look at everything here. Okay. Now, one of the first things I want to mention is this was self-sticking tile, but I went ahead and put glue on the floor. This way I knew that I wouldn't have any issues with anything peeling up. Because this is going to be outside and it's going to see extreme temperatures, hot and cold, I decided to go ahead and use glue on the floor along with self-sticking tiles. This way, hopefully, I won't have any issues with anything trying to peel up. Although it's a bus and it's going to be converted over to a camper, it's still a vehicle, so it's going to see extreme temperatures no matter what. But there you go. Now, around the walls right here, I just put caulking in place in there. That was all it needed to be to hold the edge of that down so nothing would peel up. There's going to be wall up here anyhow, so that won't be seen. Now I went heavy duty and I used aluminum through here. This is just aluminum L strips. This way I know sliding things out, you know, nothing's going to get knocked loose or peeled up. And around the wheel wells, I just went ahead and cut aluminum strips. These are 1-inch strips, I think, yeah. So I went ahead and cut strips to go around the wheel wells. Anything where something could get peeled up or come loose, I made sure to go ahead and lock it in place. But it came out really good. I'm quite pleased with it. And the good thing about it is, this was, to me, is going to be the hardest part of the job right here, as far as the interior goes. Now, when I put my wall up in here, it's only going to be just a small wall, so it's going to be from here to here. This will be the opening right here, and basically it's going to be a partition. I'll have a curtain that pulls back and forth to go to the back part of the bus, and that's going to be the bedroom. And the rest of it up here will be a place for a small stove, a small refrigerator, and a couple other necessities that I want to have in here. And I'll cover that in the next video. So basically, this YouTube video is going to be split up into a couple segments. And starting with the floor, this is where I wanted to take it as far as the first video. The second video will be when I get in here and I construct the walls and start getting everything put into place. And then we'll just continue with the videos until I get it all finalized. But yeah, I'm real happy with it. And as I mentioned in the prior clip, it's amazing how quiet this bus is when you're riding down the road in it. You know, I knew the floor would make some difference, but I wasn't aware it was going to make this much difference. It's pretty darn quiet. Now, I had a work van that I sold. It was just a solid van with no windows on it or anything other than the back windows. And it had a rubber mat in the back of it. And it was pretty loud. I mean, if you got on roads that were rough or something like that, but regardless, you still heard the street noise in the van pretty loud. And although this is a big hollow tube riding down the road, I'm pretty amazed that it's as quiet as it is. So I can only imagine how quiet it's going to be once I get everything put in here. So far the job's come off really good. And you know, the more I've had this bus, the more I'm learning about it. I found some small leaks on it, stopped those dead in their tracks. You can see right here where there was some rust here, and of course I dug everything out and made sure that nothing was breached or anything. But what was happening was the seals at the bottom of the windows, not the glass, but where these frames fit in here, I guess from over time the hot and cold caused it to contract and expand. It had split away. Whenever a sideways rain would come, it would leak. And I got to tell you something, I came in here the first time I seen a leak, and I mean literally, and it was a hell of a job too. I pulled all these panels off trying to figure out where this leak was coming from, and I never could find it. I thought it may be coming for when they ran the big steel pieces or the strips on the outside of the bus, that maybe they had some of this metal outside pieced together. It wasn't it. So I figured out where it was. I put all this back together and went outside, scraped everything, and replaced all of the cement out there. So that's a non-issue now. And besides that, the last thing I want to do is be dealing with any kind of damage in here now that I got this done. But totally dry. There's no issues whatsoever with the roof on it or any other place leaking water. So that's where I stand now, and I don't know when the next video will be uploaded. Just keep an eye out for it. But the next video, you're going to see me in here putting the actual walls along with getting the AC receptacles and everything else put into place. So on that note, ta-ta.